Hello, Angela Coté here, and we are back on the Field Coach Experts podcast. And we're having so much fun sharing all of the things we're learning as we work with different clients. We facilitate our roundtables and build our community there. And today, the topic we're going to be talking about is franchisees stuck working in their business, because this is just something we see all over the place, which means that they're not doing things like going out into the community and tracking their KPIs and making business decisions based on their metrics. And so today I've got with me, I'm going to say a good friend and probably I will say a legacy client, Marty Robertson from Oxford Learning Centers and Grade Power in the US. Welcome, Marty.
Awesome. Thank you, Angela. It's a pleasure to be here. Super excited to just talk about franchise support today. This is fantastic.
Awesome. And I was saying to Marty before, I was like, oh shoot, because right before we started, we were just chatting a little bit and I was asking him how he's doing and stuff, and I was like, shoot, I should have hit record already, because he already dropped a bunch of good knowledge bombs for me, but hopefully I'll be able to pull those back out, or they'll come out organically. But I will start with, I'll give a little bit of context in a minute about our relationship, but let's start with you, Marty. A little bit about you, context for the audience, your journey in franchising, a little background.
Fantastic. Thank you. I've been with Oxford Learning and Grade Power since 2013, so more than a decade. I came to this business after a bit of an unlikely path. I worked in hospitality and the service industry for almost 20 years. I was looking to transition out of that industry, and I started initially working in a youth correctional facility of all places with kids. And then after that, I transitioned into working in security and asset protection for the Ontario Lottery and Gaming Commission. So I was government trained on how to take a lot of notes and report things. And when I had an opportunity to make the leap, the goal of franchise coaching for me just felt really aligned with my past as an athlete, but also understanding how to evaluate situations and do a lot of report and note taking for the company. So it just felt like a good fit and kind of a convergence of two separate aspects of my work life and my professional athletic life coming together. So I jumped in with 2 feet.
I love that, because it's always important to recognize where we learned things and where we got our perspectives on things. And so maybe before even getting into how we met and all of that, just let's throw in, just as in your time as an athlete. I mean, maybe you're still an athlete in some ways, but you said I was an athlete. So what did you learn in those times that really translates to franchising? Let's get that out quickly here. Not quickly, but however long it takes.
Yeah, I think the aspect of franchising that appeals to a lot of people is to be able to join something that works, be part of a team. And the aspects of being part of a team are also what make franchising great. You've got a system that works, you have an established program, you have other people within the organization that can help you grow, that can give you guidance, that can help you develop your skill set, and you can fall back on the structure that someone else has built. Good coaching, good leadership, and skill development. So the things that were fantastic for me in a lot of areas of coaching still ring true to the way that I think franchising should be approached as a coach.
I love that. I feel like I'm seeing that more and more, that people that understand what we do at AC Inc., where we're helping people shift from a reactive, firefighting approach, consulting approach, to more of a coaching approach and a proactive, strategic approach, often do have background in sport and athletics, which is like, and teams and things like that. So I think the coaching piece is really what people get. So okay, well, I'm gonna just share with the audience this, because this is kind of cool. In our journey at AC Inc., as we were working to figure out exactly how to deliver what we believed the market needed, one of the things we used to do a bunch of years ago, maybe 4 years ago or something, was franchisees could hire us directly. And we don't do that anymore. We were focused on the franchisor and the field teams, and we deliver some fractional services, but it's through the franchisor. But back then, we were running Zoom roundtables where we were inviting franchisees, and somehow along the way, we ended up with 2 of the Oxford Learning franchisees. And so then we were offering coaching services, like they could come to free roundtables or they could also hire us. And so two of your franchisees did. They worked with Jen on our team, and about, I don't know, 8 or 9 months later, I get a call from one of your team members who said at the time, wow, wait, what's going on here? Those two franchisees that hired you guys are, one of them's up 30%, one of them's up 50% revenue. What did you guys do? What's going on? I want that for our system. And that was the beginning of the working relationship. And I just want the audience to know that you guys have been an incredible partner in working with us to even develop what we have. And so you really had that early adopter mindset, I guess, and seeing it. So let's talk a little bit about why, and kind of keeping in mind, this franchisees getting stuck working in the business need to work on it. Those two franchisees were a good example of that, where they were saying things like, now I'm looking at my metrics and I understand why that's important. And now, now I'm realizing I need to get out into the community, and like they were doing the things we want them to do. So what was it that you saw? Because even to this day, there's people that say, I need to see the exact ROI of the franchisees, and I mean, you did see a little bit of that, but you guys jumped all in. So why did you do that with AC Inc.?
Yeah, I think this is something that all franchisors should be aware of. And that is to not fall into the trap of thinking that as a business yourself, that you are any better off than the franchisees that you're coaching. You are exactly able to fall into the same patterns that they are, including working in your business. If you sit back as a franchisor and you look at your company as an organism, how guilty are you of just showing up and running the same thing every day? Everybody shows up, they clock in, they do their things, and you don't stop as a company to look at, how are we working on our business? How are we looking as a franchisor at the way that we deliver our product to our customers, who technically are the franchisees? They're the ones buying the system from us. Mm-hmm. And in a moment where we were looking for clarity, how do we move forward? Where are the gaps that we see in our organization? One of the things we recognized is, like a lot of franchisors, we do a really good job of training our people on the system. We do education. We train people who want to come in and run an education business. But it doesn't matter if you're selling burgers, if you're doing pizza, or if you're a supplier. You should sit back and take a look. Are you taking your own advice? Are you able to look at? And in that moment, what we understood was, we're doing a really good job of training everybody to run Oxfords. But are we doing an adequate job of making sure that everybody understands the end goal and is also developing the skills necessary to be a great business owner?
Yeah.
And we were developing operators, but those operators had skill gaps. So working with AC Inc. really gave us an opportunity to pull in someone with an outside view who could see areas of focus that maybe we were lacking, and not only implement but develop specific strategies for our franchisees. So yes, you can be a great franchisee, you can be a great operator, but let's start to develop the things that make you a great business person alongside being an operator, because those are going to stay with you forever.
Mm-hmm. What I'm hearing really loud and clear there is the self-reflection and the recognizing that that continuous improvement, the need for that, and I love that. I see that too. You're so right that as a franchisor, we're trying to get our franchisees to do that, and sometimes franchisors, I think, kind of overlook that. We need to think about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's really helpful, and I think so if people are hearing this, this is not a promotion for AC Inc. So I just want to make sure people take away something from this, regardless of, we're not saying you got to go work with AC Inc. as much as we love that, but the fact that there were two actually things. One is the self-reflection I heard there, and two is getting that outside set of eyes on your business, whether that's us or someone else, or, but having somebody else take a look and work with you on it can be really valuable, because we were just in it, right?
Yeah.
So, okay, let's chat a little bit about, we had the franchisees that were, that we saw that were stuck working in their business, and struggling to, maybe not even realizing it, right? So, what else were you seeing, or why? Let me say it this way: why do franchisees, do you think they get stuck working in the business?
Yeah, and I think this has a lot to do with understanding the purpose that the franchisee holds within their own organization. And what happens is everything's about scalability. Oftentimes, as a franchisee, when you come in, your job is to try and master the system. And what that requires is starting sometimes with the most hands-on menial jobs within your organization. And a lot of franchisees get stuck because they don't understand how to transition out of being the person who's the doer to being the person managing, coaching, and replacing yourself, so that now you can step back and take an additional position. So for us, oftentimes, we have layers of engagement where maybe up until 25 kids, you are doing all the programming, you are assessing all the kids, you are doing the things. But once you master those things, the goal is hire someone else, pay them to do those things, train them to do those things, because now you've got to get to 50 kids. And when you get to 50 kids, you're going to have a certain amount of staff, and you have to train an ed coordinator who's going to oversee your teachers instead of you, because you don't have time to meet with every parent and do the lesson planner reviews and all the things necessary. So, if you're running a pizza store, maybe initially you're making the pizzas. Maybe you're the one who has to be there because you have to keep your costs low. You're working 60 hours a week, whatever it might be. At some point, you've got to hire other people, and you're producing enough that you can't work there 7 days a week for 12, 16 hours a shift. You have to start building and growing. And at some point, you have to be able to step back and understand what is the next layer of performance. Some franchisees get stuck. They get stuck not seeing that there's an investment that has to take place every so often to replace yourself and take another step back. And for us as educators, I tell franchisees as they come in, we're really excited that you love our brand of education, but I do want to be clear. The more successful you get, the farther away from an educator you're going to be. Because when you get to the upper level of performance in any system, you are so far away from the end product because your job is to manage the people who likely manage the people who then manage the staff who make the things, right?
Yeah.
So you have to you work your way up, and understanding where those catch points and those layers exist create the opportunity not only for growth but stagnation as well.
And I know at Oxford you have a high standard of the education that you deliver, so I would imagine that there's fear, right? They're afraid, and maybe what other objections besides fear do you hear? Like, well, you commented on the investment, so that's probably tied to fear. Like, oh my gosh, I got to spend money to get out of working. Like, I got to pay someone now to do the thing I was doing. The reason I'm digging into this is I think that often franchisors, especially people on franchisor teams that have only ever been in the job but not maybe been a business owner themselves, which we'll talk about that in a minute because you recently ventured onto that side as well. But they often haven't felt it, and so what if you hear us say, if you can name it, you can tame it. If we don't understand what the franchisee's objections are, it's really hard to help them get over those objections to then take the steps to hire that next person, like you said. So fear, are there other things that you hear people say in terms of why they don't, like if you talk to them and say, hey, like, look what you could, if you could get out here, what you could be doing and how much money you could be making and how much impact you could be making, because you're definitely an impact and purpose-driven business. Why are they not doing it?
Yeah, sometimes, fear is obviously a huge one. Sometimes it's genuine feedback. Sometimes maybe your franchisees are witnessing something that doesn't work, right? Or vice versa. They might be seeing an opportunity and recognizing that there's a shortfall that we're not meeting, and that can sometimes build frustration, because if the franchisor says go in one direction, but the franchisee is saying, but my community, my clients, everything is telling me that we should be providing this level of service or this kind of product. And it doesn't have to be something that's completely adjacent from your offering. Sometimes it's small things. There might be a topping, or it could be, a preparation, or it could be the time of delivery. So just making sure that there's a little bit of flexibility can often solve that. I think for franchisees, they want to be heard. And I think that's the biggest thing. And creating a pathway as a franchisor where you have that communication, to me, can eliminate 95% of issues that you're going to see. So whether or not that's fear, whether or not that's doubt, whether or not that's aspiration, there's lots of different things that franchisees can be feeling, and just making sure that they see you as an ally and that you're willing to come to their level and understand their experience typically solves a lot of the problems between the franchisor and the franchisee.
Yeah, definitely. When I was a franchisee, that was for me a big thing, was when it felt like the person trying to convince me of something didn't understand and I didn't feel heard, then I'm going to shut down. I'm just going to not do what they're saying. Well, this is a perfect segue because so if we think about franchisees not feeling heard, you recently, your wife and yourself, invested in a franchise yourself of Oxford, and there's a great story there. So I'll let you explain, what's going on there, and then just that feeling, that the difference in how it feels now that you've got money in the game.
Yeah, and there was a lot of things that came together to kind of make this happen, but I can remember part of our training as field coaches is that we have to actually run a unit and master what it means to manage an independent location before you can come work at head office. And that's a step that I think that a lot of franchisors, especially in the coaching realm, miss. Is it's not just about the business coaching. You have to be able to earn the trust and the respect of the franchisees. But there was a layer for me that was missing when, meeting with our franchise advisory council, talking about it, and we pointed out, hey, listen, we've worked in the centers, we understand what it means to run this business, and the comment was made, yes, but it's different when it's your money that's on the line. It's different when you're the one who has to pay the bills. There's always going to be a layer that a support coach or a head office team member may not fully understand, right? Because at the end of the day,
Or
staff
feel,
member, you
right?
could walk away at any moment, but the franchisee doesn't get to walk away. They eat, sleep, live, breathe. When they go to bed at night, they're still in charge of that unit. So for us, we had an opportunity. We purchased the unit that actually is the closest to head office, and that was a strategic decision. My wife is the franchisee; she is the operating partner, and we're able to not only get in that business, run that business. We believe very strongly in what we do in terms of the type of education that we provide and the impact that can have on families. And for her, it has, and me as well, provided a level of insight that even though we ran units, it's very different when it's you. You cannot replace the fact that that no one else is going to take responsibility for the things the way that you are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a tough one because we can't all own a business to be able to understand it. So I think this comes back, and when we talk about helping franchisees in whatever way, like you said, they need to feel heard. There has to be that trusting relationship. I'm going to kind of go off the topic for a quick sec because you were one of our OG certified, like peak cohort attendees, graduates. Let me say graduates of our field coach certification program. So Marty was in the first cohort, which was basically a pilot, which helped us continue to improve and shape the program from there, which is all about really the proper communication that you need to have so that a franchisee does feel heard. And we talk about things like different coaching styles, situational leadership, right? And understanding, this franchisee needs this type of communication or hand-holding or love or whatever. So what are your thoughts on how would you respond to somebody that says you have to put people in a field coach position who have owned a business? You cannot put someone in unless they have. How did that coaching and training and the certification program maybe address that gap?
Yeah, and I've got, to be clear, so I've got a group, we've got 6 support coaches in total within the company. And
you went through it as an executive to understand it, right?
Yeah, half of them were previous franchisees, or staff. The other half were hires, either internally or externally, that did not work or own a business prior. I can say, obviously, there's a level of engagement and credibility that comes from hiring people that have very specific application knowledge. So for us, I've got specifically right now 2 people on staff as support coaches who were franchisees in our system for over a decade.
Which helps for sure.
Yeah,
That's good. That's
with
great.
help.
That
And
works. Yeah.
but I'll say this: if you were to ask me, is there a discernible difference in overall quality of engagement between those staff members and the others? I would say no. I would say my non-franchisees, non-business owners at this point are equally as effective, as highly regarded. It's just different. And I think one of the really interesting things, I ask every franchisee this that I hire, and this is my 3rd, which is, what for you was the strangest thing when you came on? You 6 months in, here you are. What is the thing that surprised you the most as a former franchisee, now working for head office, peeking behind the curtain? And they all say the same thing, which is, I thought it would be easier because of my history. But I'm now, it's you carry the label. You're now head office.
Yes.
So they see that first. That's the first thing they see, right?
That transition that you went from being one of us to being one of
Yes.
them, which we don't want
Right.
people to think like that, but they can't really help it. That just happens.
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
being a franchisee, yes, does it help? But I would say it almost helps the coach more because of what they can bring to the table. They're confident in it quicker. Whereas the others have to build that system knowledge, but they might have stronger business acumen, right? Depending on the person. But they all say, I was surprised. I thought because I thought because I had the experience, that they would just value me. And they don't value me anymore. In fact, they often say the same thing, which is, why is it so hard to get them to do the things necessary to succeed? I thought
And
they
you
would
realize,
but it's like I'm banging my head against the wall.
yeah.
So it's interesting to hear, right? And the other comment that I get too, which I think is fantastic, and I wish every franchisee in every system could hear this, which is, as someone who came from being a franchisee and then works for a head office, their comment is, some franchisees, and me included for a period of time, when you're a franchisee, you're like, they don't know what they're talking about. They're just sitting up in their ivory tower and, passing judgment, and, they're making our lives difficult, yada, yada. But when they come to head office, their genuine comment is, you guys are all just here every day, working your butts off, trying to make the lives of franchisees better. And I wish every franchisee could see how much head office actually cares about the success of their franchisees.
Ooh, that's interesting. So the franchisees, when they came into the home office team side, are saying that.
Yeah.
There's oh, that's golden, and I hope they're out there saying it too. But yeah, and I guess this all comes down to, like, it is such a unique relationship, the franchisee franchisor, and it does help when you've been in the shoes of the franchisee, I would say, just to understand some things. But now hearing this, it helps to be on the other, like, in the other, I don't want to say side, but other side of the relationship, not other side of the game, but other side of the relationship. Just kind of thinking back again, I'm trying to just, we're talking about the topic being franchisee stuck working in the business, but all of these things we're talking about, if you want to work with a franchisee to help them, A, recognize, hey, you're stuck, if they don't recognize it, or B, you know you're stuck and you want help, and let's get you what you're really wanting out of this business, all of the things we're talking about need to be a part of the equation. It's the listening to the franchisees, it's the right kind of coaching, it's understanding the differences and things like that. Let's just talk for a minute. How can you tell a franchisee stuck working in a business? What are some of the warning signs that you're like, uh-oh, this person's starting to just, spiral, and they're not growing, and they're not, they're not happy, they're stuck? What are some signs?
Yeah, I obviously, the goal here would be that you have an ongoing positive relationship of engagement with your field of franchisees. So understanding what their goals are is really important. But if you're involved enough, you should also understand both your system and how it's supposed to work, but hopefully their systems. And I think that's part of the challenge of being a franchisor, is that you can have the best system, the best structure, the best providers, the best distributors, whatever it might be. But when you bring in an independent operator, which franchisees are, they come with their own set of skills, tools, expectations. So as a coach, one of the best things I can do, yes, as a foundation, I have to be an expert in my system, but I have to learn the systems of the person that is running the location. Are they organized? Do they have good leadership? Are they able to navigate transitions? Do they understand how to coach other people and train them? Do they understand how to engage with clients or engage with head office? If you learn your franchisees, you'll understand their experience independently. So when they have change in patterns, if they stop making their calls, if they stop, showing up to meetings, if you get calls from head office or you're talking to the team or their metrics shift, you'll have a better understanding as to why. You'll be able to pick up on those things sooner. And to me, that's one of the best things you can be as a coach, is because you're at a bird's eye view, because you're at an arm's length, observing things that maybe the franchisee's too close to see. Ideally, you can get in sooner and address things before they become a real problem, right? We're seeing higher staff turnover than usual. Why are you losing assistant managers? Or, we're not seeing certain products move the way they used to. And you look and you see that, the scheduling in the location isn't happening properly, or maybe machines are breaking down. So understanding, yes, your system, but knowing the franchisee, learning their business and understanding their implementation lets you pick up on the telltale signs of whatever it might be in your system that's showing some type of slowdown, and being able to track that back to the root cause is going to be the way that you lead that franchisee forward with a fix.
Right, as opposed to going, oh, that darn franchisee, they're not growing, and just getting mad and trying to maybe force something to happen. It's really looking at what's going on here, catching, and like you said, engagement, showing up to calls, things like that. So what are some of the things, if you've got a franchisee who is, you've got a good relationship with because you've done all these smart things like listening to them, showing them metrics, data, helping them understand, what are some things some of the first steps do you see working with coaches helping franchisees get out of working in their business? They need to do this, they need to do that. What are those things?
Yeah, I think establishing a baseline with that franchisee of what they value is really important. Because if I go in as a coach and I try to dictate what success looks like, I'm making everything about me and on my terms. Most franchisees don't appreciate that type of dictatorial coaching. So understanding that, we mentioned before, this is a delicate balance between franchisee and franchisor relationship, and that's what you have to look at it is this is a relationship. You have to nurture this connection. Yes, there's a contractual aspect to what we're doing. But if you want to succeed, as a franchisor, you need that franchisee to succeed. So the best way you can start is by establishing what are the expectations, the goals, the desires of your franchisee. Because once you know, all you need is that first success. It's about stacking wins and building proof for that franchisee that your coaching relationship is going to yield value. So if you can figure out first, okay, what's a tiny step that's going to help this franchisee trust me, build our relationship and connection by showing them the value of working together. Boom, once we get that first metric, and that could be hiring the right new person, it could be increasing sales, it could be, structuring something so they have more time with their family. You're not going to know until you start to ask and listen. When you understand your franchise needs, then you can look at, how can I use my system? How can I use the structure and the quality of the franchise network that we've built to achieve this one thing for this franchisee? Right? And then you start, you're just stacking bricks. And as soon as you get one, you get the next. And the more you build, the greater the structure, the foundation you're going to have with that franchisee. Before you know it, they're not struggling to perform. The question is, how high
Hmm.
can we help this person go?
Hmm. Yeah, so it's a combination of their needs, what they're comfortable with, but then getting those initial wins and getting their confidence. And what I kind of pictured was maybe even like if you're going to see them in person and taking them away from the business for a couple hours and going out and maybe talking to other business owners with them, right? Like taking a step with them or encouraging them to take a step. I think when people think about getting out of working in the business to work on it, we often think it means like going from delivering everything to delivering nothing. And
Yeah.
really, I think it's just taking those initial steps, like, taking a little time away, taking time with the family. Like, oh, guess what? It happened and it worked.
Yeah.
As a franchisee, for me, that happened organically. Well, we had our wedding planned for it was like 6 months into opening our first store because we had planned that before we decided to become franchisees, and we had to leave our store. And it was when we were gone. It was when we came back we found out that our freezer, which had $60,000 worth of product, had broken down. The staff didn't even tell us because they took care of it and they were so proud. And it was like, oh my gosh, like all this time we thought we were so indispensable,
Yeah.
but they dealt with it. And I think, franchisees getting a little with that was a huge win for us, as much as it doesn't sound like it, because they dealt with it in the right way.
Yeah.
But for the win of, oh my gosh, we didn't realize it showed us that we could be out of the business. The other thing you touched on earlier, I think it is important, is that it doesn't mean you can't still deliver the service of the business. Like their case, like if they want to be a part of making the calls to families or actually delivering the content, that maybe they can hop in and do that, right? But it's by choice now, right? As opposed to when they were like stuck in it, right? Like we're not helping them understand. We're not saying you can't ever do that. We're saying
Yeah.
let's get you acting more like a business owner so that you can step in and do those things when you want to, and in a way that connects you to the business. What are some of the business skills that you've seen the franchisees needed to learn so that they could go from being operators to being good business owners?
Oh man, I mean, obviously for me, I think the first aspect of that, the end game is leadership. So I'll
Yeah,
rephrase that, right?
so
If you
important.
can get to a point where you're developing a real leader within that organization, but that means that that person has had to, one, be able to connect with other people to bring them on board and communicate their vision
Hmm.
and motivate those people to share that same vision. If you're going to be successful in a business, your team has to want to be part of what you're doing. So you have to develop the ability to find those people. You have to develop the ability to motivate and train those people. You have to develop systems, organizations to oversee that your finding, training, development, and motivation of those people is being successful. And
Hmm.
then you also have to understand how to troubleshoot those things. But ultimately, what you're looking for is to develop the skills of leadership needed to sustain a business long term, right?
Hmm.
And that means you can't spend your days being the staff member,
Hmm.
right? If you get caught working in your business in roles that you should have hired for, then you are not fulfilling your greater purpose as a leader within that organization, because you're never going to see the coach on the sidelines of an NFL team get in and take a snap. That's not their role.
Yeah, you suck. I'm getting in there now.
That's not your
Look at
job.
that.
You have a purpose, and that is to oversee how everything transpires. So that's really hard, though. Like I can remember. So we've got a member of our system, for example, who is a top three franchisee, and if she heard me say that, she would scorn me for suggesting that she could fall as low as three. So she
Oh.
has a fantastic attitude. She's hungry. She's a go-getter. But there was a time when she was a staff member. And as she became a franchisee, the hardest thing to coach for her was to let go of being part of the pieces that engaged with clients. and to be able to delegate those things to team members and to trust them enough that they would execute on her behalf. So similar to the story you just told,
Yeah.
hearing you say that as a coach, I think it's wonderful that you learned that those people could do those things. But what that really tells me is that in that moment, if I were your coach, I'd see, let's talk about the underlying feeling there that led you to believe that only you could be responsible for these things. What was it about the organization, your team, or the way you were working that made you feel like you couldn't step away, or that they wouldn't be able to handle these things? Right? So understanding, the underlying reasons for why people struggle to make these leaps and being able to talk about those root cause issues with franchisees, it really goes to, again, towards developing the trust in that relationship and being able to help them overcome these hurdles as they look to make leaps in their performance.
Again, that all comes back though to that, and I don't mean to sound cliche about relationship, but it really is. It's building that trusting relationship by doing things like all the things you're saying, caring about their needs, having those open conversations, wondering what their goals are and all that, and then like showing them that you care about them so that they open up, so that you can ask them things like, well, why are you worried about that? And then going deeper, why, well, what would be the consequence of that? Like if somebody would have done that exercise with me, I probably would have been less scared when I left for my wedding and honeymoon. But we told this team, we said, if the freezer breaks down, here's the number to call. If this happens, do this. If there's a burglary, or here's what to do. Guess what? They did it, right?
Yeah.
I we talked earlier about the fear. I was afraid that they wouldn't know what to do, or they would just, another thing though, and I want to make sure we just we'll start to wrap up here soon. But the leadership thing was good. I want to come back to that briefly too. But when I was a franchisee, this is regarding the leadership, I thought that if I wasn't in my store mopping floors or cleaning the toilets, that I had to role model being the hardest working person in the room, and I had to role model being the hardest working person for what they also should be doing. And they might think, oh, that's great, Angela's in here mopping, but I'm not growing the business if I'm mopping the floors.
Yeah.
So I could do that a little bit here and there, but I had to get over this idea that my role was what they're doing. Yeah. And I think the way to do that is helping the franchisee understand, to teach the staff that, like, we're like a team, right? Like you have your quarterback, you have your linebacker, you have all those certain roles, and you have a coach for a reason. Like, I think that a lot of it's just clarity it comes down to. So the leadership skills, I just wanted to emphasize how that was, I think, the best answer you could have given, because everybody thinks it's business or understanding financials, which it is too. Understanding marketing, it is too, for sure. But you can't spend time on your numbers. You can't spend time out marketing if you haven't built a team that you can step away from, and that is leadership.
Yeah.
So thank you for that. That was a good one. I just had to reflect. Me.
No,
like
that's awesome.
processing. Okay, we better get working towards winding down, because as much as this is awesome, at some point we've got to wrap it up. So thank you, by the way, for all of this great wisdom. Before we get to the Go Be Awesome challenge, is there anything we missed that you think we should touch on regarding franchisees being stuck working in the business, needing to work on it, relationship? Was there anything I'm missing there? You want to add any little last things in?
Yeah, I think as I heard you talking, the idea of you reflecting back and looking at mopping floors, and I think every franchisee has to understand purposeful leadership. Often, sometimes for me, it gets referred to as service leadership, right? And the idea being, in that moment, you're willing to do whatever it takes. Mm-hmm. Your staff don't value you because you do grunt work on a regular basis. What they value is that you're there with them, participating. Your presence is known, and you're adding value to their experience. And that's very, very important. If you're not there, if you're not seen, then it's hard for them to value you. It's hard for them to think that they're valued, because they don't know your contribution. But that doesn't mean you have to do all of the things. Mm-hmm. But what I would say is, if in the moment you can ask your staff, hey, what is the thing that needs to happen for you to be the most successful right now. And that thing is, well, I can't do this thing that would grow the business or lead to better sales or help this client because I have to go mop the floor. And your response is, tell you what, you worry about the client because that's the best thing you can do right now. I'll take care of mopping the floors to make sure you can get that done, right? The difference there is you're stepping in to provide the opportunity for that staff member to be the best version of themselves for you in that moment and prioritizing their well-being and success over just doing work that has to be done. And I think if everybody as a leader can ask that question of their staff, hey, what do you need from me to be the best version of you? Sometimes it'll just be getting work out of the way. Sometimes it might be addressing an issue. Sometimes it might be, providing support to them. But if you're leading as an example of how do I make you succeed, what can I provide to you, then your teams will always succeed, including your franchisees, right? I ask franchisees that all the time. What do you need from me to be successful? What's the best thing head office could do for you right now to help you get to the next level? If they don't know, then they should reflect on that.
Yeah, and so that way you're doing the right thing too, not wasting time doing something else. But I love that. That's what you mean by purposeful leadership. It's like we're doing it for a reason. That's so good. Okay, so now it's time for the Go Be Awesome Challenge. So we, as you know at AC Inc., you know for sure, we love to make sure that people leave with something that they're taking away that they could go do or change the way they're thinking or whatever that is for their business. Something that's not in 3 months, like they can go back in the next few days and change. What would that Go Be Awesome Challenge be? Yeah. Regarding the franchisees being stuck working in the business and needing to work more on it. How do we help them do that?
I think the biggest thing for me is to take a step back and listen to your franchisees. And what I mean by that is it's really hard to make purposeful steps forward as a franchisor if you don't fully understand the experience of the franchisees right now. Whether it's your FAC, Franchise Advisory Council, whether or not it's your business coaches going out and having meaningful conversations about what's going on in the field right now. Your franchisees are your front line. They're the ones interacting with your clients on a regular basis. We as a franchisor need to make sure that interaction is the most meaningful and effective at the point of sale for the client. And the way that we make changes to a system is by accepting real purposeful feedback, right? Making sure that your system as a franchisor reflects the practical application of your product between your franchisee and the client in the community. So when you go out there and you establish great communication patterns, you're listening to your franchisees, you can make real change. And that can impact not only the relationship between you and the franchisee, but that's going to impact the relationship between your brand, your product, and the end user. So for me, we've done so many things in the last couple of years. We've revamped our onboarding. We thought about our product service delivery. We changed the pieces to our product on a regular basis. So all of that comes from really, really positive engagement with our franchisees because they're the ones who can give us the best feedback. So I would say go out, form a pattern of communication that can genuinely give you purposeful feedback to impact the way you want to move forward.
Yeah, that's so good. And it sounds kind of simple, but it's not. And it's something we overlook, right? Franchisors often just get stuck doing, ironically, get stuck in their business or, on the teams. We just get stuck in the day-to-day. And you're basically saying that franchisors also need to step back and take that look and reflect. Love it. Okay.
It's easy to fall into the pattern of because we're head office and because we're the franchisor that we know.
Yeah.
Right? When in fact, we've got the foundation. We might carry that North Star, but the franchisees are the ones who are interacting with the clients, and you have to have that conduit back from the end user, and that flows through your franchisee.
Yeah, and I love it. And yeah, you guys are just so thoughtful and purposeful at Oxford about really ensuring franchisee success and mutual wins. And that's why I love having you. I love having you at our roundtables. Love having you as a client. Love having you on our podcast right now. Just we love working with progressive brands that are. And you're a well-established brand. You've been around a long time, but you're not like, oh, we know what we're doing because we've been around. We're like, we need to stay innovative and stay fresh with everything. So thank you so much, Marty. I'll pause there. Just if you final goodbye, last thoughts.
No, and I just want to say, Ange, thank you for always thinking of us, for getting involved. AC Inc. came in to our lives at the right point. Running the leadership roundtables throughout COVID was absolutely fantastic. At a time where we were looking for a jolt coming out of COVID, going back into brick and mortar services, we chose to invest in our franchisees, which was fantastic. We've had, since the pandemic, year over year record sales as a company, and we just finished off 11 straight record breaking months.
Wow.
September we had our third highest month, but then October and November back to highest ever sales. So working with AC Inc. has allowed us to really focus on the areas of the business that matter, and that is the franchisee valuing the brand and valuing the product and the service and making the deepest impact that they can with the clients. And a lot of that stems from some of the work that we did with AC Inc. So thank you.
Oh, that's amazing to hear. Thank you so much for that. So if anybody's listening to this and it's getting your wheels turning, we've got free roundtables you can come hang out at. Marty's at those a lot, so you get to hear more of his awesome wisdom and share with each other. Or if you want to get on a call and just sort of brainstorm what's going on in your system, and we can talk about ways that either we can help or leave you with some action steps, reach out. We are fieldcoachexperts.com, and I'll leave it at that. So go be awesome.